President Yoweri Museveni's decision to set up a tribunal to probe the alleged misconduct of Supreme Court Judge Lady Justice Esther Kisache could have a potential impact on the public's trust in the judiciary, says a legal analyst. President Museveni early this month constituted a 7-man judicial tribunal to inquire into the alleged misconduct of Supreme Court Justice Esther Kisache Chitimbo. The tribunal, expected to be led by senior legal experts, will probe claims of professional misconduct against Justice Kisache. The judge, who has had a long-standing dispute with Chief Justice Alfonso Winnie-Dolo and the Judicial Service Commission, previously accused the judiciary's leadership of interfering with her 2021 election petition ruling. Legal analyst Counsel George Musisi believes that mediation would have been a better approach to resolve the issue, thus protecting the judiciary's sanctity.
The issue with the judiciary is that it's set in such delicate situation under our laws that its image is more important than anything for purpose of protecting its sanctity and even how the public perceive it. In this case, we have a peculiar scenario where a justice of the Supreme Court is having issues with her supervisors, that she has even instituted a case before the courts against the Chief Justice and against the Judicial Service Commission. We would have thought that the best way of handling that matter would have been through mediation, which is a win-win in order to protect the sanctity of the judiciary.
Justice Kisache accused Chief Justice Alfonso Winnie-Dolo and other top judicial officials of a witch hunt, which commenced shortly after she authored a dissenting ruling in the Robert Chagulanyi 2021 election petition. The judiciary later authored a statement accusing Kisache of being repulsive to her colleagues and rejecting to follow the practice of the court, which demanded that she share her ruling with the Chief Justice before reading it. However, according to George Musisi, sharing rulings is not mandatory, and not doing so does not constitute an unlawful act.
Not sharing is not unlawful, because if it was mandatory, then it would mean that there are sanctions for not sharing. It's a practice that has been developed over time. It's encouraged, and of course it's a good practice. However, it's not mandatory. So not sharing the decisions or your decision does not in itself mean that you've committed an unlawful act. Otherwise, there would be sanctions under the same practice guide, the same regulations. So they would be under any law, a practice that if you don't share, this is what, because in law we believe anything not expressly forbidden is allowed. So it's a practice, however, it's not law that breach of it would cause sanction.
The Deputy Speaker of Parliament, Thomas Taiwo, has cautioned people against sectarianism based on religion. While speaking at the installation of Dr. Chris Baramunsi, the Minister of Information and National Guidance, as the second Chancellor of Great Lakes University in Kanungu, Taiwo said politicians who promote divisionism cannot effectively lobby for their constituents. Taiwo warned the youth against being consumed by such sectarian comments, as they have much to contribute to the development of this country. He commended the university directors for their resilience in managing the institute and praised them for choosing Dr. Chris Baramunsi as their chancellor. Baramunsi pledged to work diligently to transform the university. Olivia Adenaitwe, the director at the university, asked the government to exempt private universities from paying taxes to reduce the financial burden that they face and also allow them to share facilities like science laboratories that are in public universities. Women advocates have stated that failing to address sexual and reproductive health and rights impedes economic justice for women. Olabukunola Williams, the sexual and reproductive health and rights lead at Akina Mamo Africa, says there would not be a functioning economy without women who provide a significant portion of unpaid care work and labor. She says the ability for women to control their bodies and get to make a decision on when to have children is important for their productivity. She was speaking during a dialogue on sexual and reproductive health and rights organized by the International Center for Research on Women at the Serena Conference Center. Olabukunola noted that it would be wrong to separate sexual and reproductive health and rights issues from the contribution that women make towards the economy.
And so if you're looking at a woman in a rural area who, for example, is practicing agriculture, right? And you're looking at how does tax impact her and her decision, how much work she's doing, for example. But that work is not captured in the economy. It's not seen. It's, as we all argue, as feminists argue, it's unpaid care work. It's not seen as economically valuable. And it's quite important to pay attention to that, because often we want to separate sexual and reproductive health and rights from that.
Dr. Stella Basira, the executive director of the Africa Center for Health Systems and Gender Justice, says Africa has had a huge dependence on donor funding for healthcare financial needs, and as such, health coverage has not fully integrated sexual reproductive health. She says it's odd for a nation to pride itself on a population that has 70% young people, and yet their sexual and reproductive health needs have not been addressed.
Until now, the whole continent around speaking about universal health coverage really has not integrated sexual and reproductive health and rights as a huge component, particularly around adolescent and young women, and also just generally young people. Yet we keep being proud of a demographic development in a continent that really prides itself of having more than 75% of young people. It's rhetorical to keep saying that we're a young continent, and yet we cannot be able to address the reproductive needs of these young people within the continent.
The Minister of State for East African Affairs, James Magode Ikuya, has tasked Ugandan filmmakers to use their God-given talents to market the country's physical features. While officiating at the Eastern Regional Film Competition organized by the Uganda Communications Commission in collaboration with MultiChoice in Tororo District, Magode said such initiatives would help to publicize the country's hidden beauty at the international level, hence boosting the tourism industry. According to him, Uganda is endowed with natural features and cultures that are good for tourism attraction, and the only way to market it is by audiovisual actors and producers to use them as venues where they can act their movies. He said it's unfair for foreign movies to be promoted in the country when the country has potential filmmakers. According to the UCC spokesperson Ibrahim Bossa, the regional film contest was organized to recognize, reward, and promote outstanding films and talents in different groups. He said the competition is part of the activities ahead of the National Film Festival to be held in June 2025. For more stories and the latest updates, log on to SignUFM.com.